Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. On the outskirts of a quiet coastal village named Marrow's Edge, nestled between rugged cliffs and endless fields of heather, the people lived simple, measured lives. They had learned over many generations to live with the persistent hum of the wind and the rhythmic crashing of the waves upon the shore. Yet as the years passed, an undercurrent of something unspoken stirred beneath their routines, a sense that memories once lost might one day be reclaimed. Elders spoke in murmurs of a time when the land was young and every soul's heart was unburdened by regret. They recalled a legend of a storm, a tempest born not of water and wind alone, but of the collective memories of those who had been forgotten by time. It was said that when the sky darkened unexpectedly and thunder rumbled like the voices of the past, the storm would sweep across the land and awaken memories that had long lain dormant. It began on a late summer afternoon when the sky, usually clear and bright over Marrow's Edge, started to brood with dark, swirling clouds. Farmers and fishermen alike noticed an unusual hush falling over the fields and docks, as if nature itself was holding its breath. In the distance, a low rumble echoed, a sound that resonated with an ancient sorrow. In the village square, the people exchanged worried glances. Some recalled their grandparents speaking of an old curse that sometimes visited in the form of a storm. Others dismissed it as nothing more than an overactive imagination. Yet deep in the heart of the storm, a secret was brewing, a force that would soon set the stage for a transformation that no one could have foreseen. In a forgotten attic of an abandoned manor at the edge of the village, a solitary journal lay hidden among dusty relics. Its pages, yellowed with age and filled with cryptic entries about love lost and promises broken, had long been ignored. On that fateful day, as the storm clouds gathered, a bolt of lightning illuminated the attic for a brief moment, and the journal fluttered open. The pages began to glow with an ethereal light as if stirred by an invisible hand. Unbeknownst to anyone, the energies unleashed by the storm would soon interweave with the faded memories contained within that journal, sparking a chain of events that would awaken the forgotten past in every heart. As dusk approached, the wind picked up, and the first drops of rain began to fall in heavy, determined sheets. The storm that had been silently building erupted with a fury that defied explanation. Thunder boomed, and the sky was split asunder by brilliant forks of lightning. But amidst the chaos, there was something extraordinary, an undercurrent of shimmering light that flowed within the tempest, like strands of silver woven through the fabric of darkness. The villagers took shelter in their homes, yet as the storm raged outside, many found themselves unable to sleep. In the midst of the downpour, those who dared to listen began to hear, within the roar of the wind and the crash of the rain, echoes of voices. At first they were faint and indistinct, a lullaby of memories carried on the gusts. Then with each successive roar of thunder, the voices grew clearer, revealing the long-forgotten memories of a time when hope and despair had danced side by side. In the heart of the storm, the forgotten journal's light merged with the tempest's magic, releasing a cascade of memories into the air. Invisible tendrils of recollection swirled among the rain, touching every object, every soul. It was as though the storm had become a great collector, gathering fragments of the past and scattering them like seeds across the land. The villagers awoke to find that in their homes, in the narrow streets of Marrow's Edge, images and voices from yesteryear whispered from the shadows, memories of people and events they had long thought lost. In one modest cottage near the edge of the village, An elderly woman named Etta experienced the storm's strange power firsthand. As she sat by her hearth, the winds carried to her ears the laughter of her long-departed children and the tender lullabies sung by her mother. Overwhelmed by the bittersweet symphony of voices, Etta wept, not from sorrow, but from the profound recognition of a life lived and cherished. She understood that the storm was not malevolent. It was a messenger, a reminder that every heart carries within it the echoes of the past, waiting to be remembered. In another part of the village, a young man named Tobias, burdened by the weight of regret and missed opportunities, found himself confronted by vivid visions of his youth. In the midst of the storm, memories of old friends, lost loves, and moments of fleeting joy rushed back to him with overwhelming intensity. With each flash of lightning, Tobias saw himself as a child, running freely under a summer sun, and as an adolescent, dreaming of a future that now seemed both distant and painfully within reach. The storm, it seemed, had unlocked doors in his mind that he had long kept closed. As the tempest reached its zenith, the entire village of Marrow's Edge became a mosaic of memory. Neighbors, once isolated by the mundane rhythms of daily life, found themselves gathered in shared wonder and introspection. In the town square, where the storm's fury was momentarily hushed, people began to speak softly of what they had experienced, a collective, cathartic remembrance of a shared history. They recounted tales of joy, heartbreak, and the silent resilience of those who had come before them. In that moment, the storm had become a bridge between generations, a force that united the living with the ghosts of the past in a timeless dance of remembrance. Among those whose lives were transformed by the storm was a young woman named Lila, who had grown up feeling the weight of unfulfilled dreams and untold stories. Lila had always been fascinated by the notion of memory, by the idea that every smile, every tear, every whispered word had the power to shape who we are. The storm's awakening of forgotten memories stirred something deep within her. Determined to understand and preserve the lessons of the past, Lila set out on a personal quest to document the voices and images that the tempest had uncovered. Armed with a pen, a weathered notebook, and an unyielding resolve, Lila wandered the rain-soaked streets of Marrow's Edge. She listened intently to the voices that the storm carried, transcribing the stories of the elderly, the laughter of children, and even the quiet laments of those who had once known profound loss. Each memory she recorded was a treasure, a piece of the collective soul of her village, waiting to be acknowledged and celebrated. As Lila's notebook filled with the stories of the past, she began to notice a subtle transformation within herself and those around her. The storm, with its uncanny ability to bring forgotten memories to light, had ignited a process of healing. Neighbors who had long carried hidden grief found solace in sharing their stories. Old wounds once thought irreparable began to mend in the warmth of collective remembrance. The very air of Marrow's Edge seemed charged with the gentle promise that while time marches on, the heart's true essence remains eternal. Lila's work soon became a beacon for the community. At gatherings in the local town hall, she read aloud the stories she had gathered, tales of love, loss, triumph, and quiet resilience. Her voice, soft yet resolute, wove the fragmented memories into a tapestry of hope that reminded everyone that even the most forgotten moments carried the power to inspire new beginnings. After the storm finally subsided, a calm, unlike any other, descended upon Marrow's Edge. The skies cleared to reveal a vast expanse of stars, and a gentle hush fell over the village, as if nature itself was taking a deep, restorative breath. In the wake of the tempest, the people found themselves changed, not by devastation, but by a profound awakening. In the days that followed, the echoes of the storm lingered in unexpected places. In the soft patter of rain against window panes, in the rustling of leaves in the early morning breeze, and in the quiet hum of everyday life, there remained a gentle reminder of that night when forgotten memories were brought back to life. The villagers, now more aware of the precious nature of memory, began to cherish every moment, every smile, every tear. Inspired by Lila's meticulous recordings and the shared experiences of the storm, the people of Marrow's Edge established an annual festival, the Festival of Echoes. Every year on the anniversary of the storm, the villagers gathered in the town square to celebrate the power of remembrance. They lit lanterns that flickered like captured starlight, recited poems, and shared stories of the past. The festival became a time of communal healing, a living tribute to the idea that every memory, no matter how forgotten, is a part of the collective human experience. Lila's notebook, now a cherished heirloom passed down through generations, was enshrined in the village's modest museum. It served as a constant reminder that the storm had not only awakened forgotten memories, but had also rekindled the flame of hope and unity in a community that had once felt fragmented and isolated. Years turned into decades, and the legend of the storm that brought forgotten memories became an enduring part of Marrow's Edge's identity. The once dreaded tempest was now remembered as a turning point, a moment when the invisible threads that connected every heart were made visible, if only for a brief, transformative instant. The storm had taught the villagers that even the most painful memories, when embraced, could serve as the foundation for renewal and growth. Elderly residents would often sit by their windows in the quiet hours before dawn, reminiscing about that fateful night, their eyes reflecting both the light of bygone days and the wisdom of well-worn experiences, carried the gentle spark of remembrance, a spark that lit the path for future generations. Marrow's Edge, once a quiet village defined by its routine existence, had become a vibrant community united by the power of shared memory. The Festival of Echoes grew into a beloved tradition, drawing visitors from far and wide who sought to experience the transformative magic of the storm. Local artisans created paintings, sculptures, and songs inspired by the vivid tapestry of recollections, and every corner of the village bore the marks of a people who had learned to honor their past while embracing the future. In her later years, Lila became a revered storyteller and a guardian of the village's history. With a gentle smile and a voice imbued with quiet strength, she would recount the tale of the storm that had awakened forgotten memories. A story that spoke of loss and longing, but also of the boundless capacity of the human heart to heal, to connect, and to find beauty even in the darkest of nights. As the sun began to rise on each new day, Marrow's Edge awoke with a renewed sense of possibility. The memory of the storm lingered like a soft echo in the hearts of its people, a constant reminder that while the past may be shrouded in shadow, it is also illuminated by the light of shared experience and hope. The village thrived, its spirit indomitable, its collective soul enriched by the legacy of a night when forgotten memories were brought back to life. And in doing so, the people learned that every memory, every echo, is a vital part of the eternal dance of life. On clear nights when the sky is a vast canvas of glittering stars, and the gentle whisper of the wind carries the faint strains of long-forgotten melodies, one can almost hear the echoes of that ancient storm. They are the soft, lingering reminders of every joy and sorrow that once filled the hearts of the people of Marrow's Edge. For those who listen closely, the storm is not a memory of pain, but a promise that in the tapestry of life, every thread of experience, no matter how forgotten, contributes to the beauty of the whole. Thus, the story of the storm that brings forgotten memories endures, a timeless saga of transformation, of the delicate interplay between loss and renewal, and of the eternal hope that even in the darkest night, the light of remembrance can guide us toward a brighter tomorrow. Long ago, in an age when magic flowed like a hidden river through the hearts of mortals, a master artisan named Lysander crafted an instrument of unparalleled beauty. Renowned for his skill in both music and mysticism, Lysander fashioned the harp from the silvered wood of a fabled tree said to be nourished by moonlight and tears. Its strings were spun from the hair of nymphs, and its frame was etched with runes of sorrow and hope. Legends whisper that Lysander's heart was heavy with grief at the loss of his beloved Amara, whose laughter once filled his days with light. In his despair, he poured his sorrow into the creation, infusing the harp with his unspoken pain. The instrument, imbued with a fragment of his soul, was meant to be a tribute to the bittersweet nature of love, joy intertwined with sorrow. Soon after its completion, strange occurrences began to haunt the harp. When played, its music would summon an eerie mist and cause its delicate strings to vibrate as if touched by unseen hands. Most startling of all, the harp wept. Droplets of crystal-clear water would form along its frame, gathering like tears along its carved motifs. This weeping was not merely an effect of weather or time. It was as though the harp itself cried for the love that had been lost, for the unhealed wounds of its maker, and for every sorrow that ever echoed through the hearts of those who listened. Some believed the instrument was cursed, for each note played revealed memories of anguish and regret. Others saw it as a divine gift, a reminder that beauty is often born of heartbreak, and that every tear has the power to heal if one learns to understand its meaning. The weeping harp passed through the hands of kings and commoners alike, its legend growing with every generation. In the courts of a long-forgotten kingdom, the harp was played during solemn ceremonies to commemorate lost battles and fallen heroes. Its mournful strains resonated in grand halls, stirring both pride and sorrow in the hearts of those who heard it. When the kingdom fell into ruin and its people scattered to the winds, the harp vanished from royal treasuries and found its way into the secret vaults of monasteries and the dusty attics of humble villages. Each new owner discovered that the instrument's lament was not just a reflection of its past, but a mirror into their own soul, a repository of personal grief and unspoken longing. For centuries, tales of the weeping harp spread like wildfire. Bards recited its story in taverns and at festivals, and it became a symbol for those who had suffered loss. Some claimed that on moonlit nights, the soft weeping of the harp could be heard floating on the wind, a melancholic hymn to a time when love and sorrow were inextricably bound. It was said that whoever possessed the harp would be touched by its magic, both blessed and burdened by its endless tears. In a quiet village nestled at the edge of a vast forest, a young woman named Lyris lived a life marked by quiet resilience and a lingering sense of melancholy. Orphaned at a young age and raised by her wise grandmother, Lyris was no stranger to sorrow. Her nights were filled with dreams of voices from the past and unexplainable tears that mirrored her own grief. One day, while rummaging through her grandmother's belongings in the attic of their weathered cottage, Lyris discovered an old leather-bound case. Inside, wrapped in faded silk, lay the weeping harp. Its frame, though aged, still glimmered with the faint traces of its original enchantment, and a single tear glistened upon its surface as if freshly shed. Alongside the harp, a fragile letter in elegant script explained that the instrument had been passed down through generations, a legacy of both heartache and hope. With trembling hands, Lyris accepted the inheritance. She had always felt a mysterious pull toward music, and as she cradled the harp, she felt as though it whispered to her, a soft, sorrowful melody that resonated with her innermost being. Despite the warnings of old superstitions, Lyris decided to learn the harp, determined to uncover its secrets and perhaps, in the process, understand her own sorrow. From the moment she plucked its strings, the harp began to weep. Each note unleashed a cascade of crystalline tears, each chord a window into memories of pain and loss that Lyris had long kept hidden in the depths of her heart. Yet with every tear, she also sensed a healing energy, a promise that by embracing her grief, she might transform it into something beautiful. As Lyris practiced day after day, The weeping of the harp became a kind of language, a dialogue between her soul and the echoes of the past. In the quiet solitude of her small room, she learned to interpret the mournful strains as messages from the harp. It spoke of the transient nature of sorrow, of the beauty that could emerge from the ashes of despair, and of the strength found in vulnerability. The more she played, the more Lyris realized that the harp's tears were not a curse, but a manifestation of the deep, unspoken truths of the human heart. They were the scars of life, the marks of a love that had been lost, and the seeds of eventual renewal. Through her music, Lyris began to heal, not by erasing the pain, but by transforming it into a powerful, cathartic force. One fateful evening, as the autumn wind howled outside and the first drops of rain began to fall, Lyris sat before the harp under the soft glow of candlelight. As she played a slow, mournful melody, the room filled with a spectral light, and images began to dance in the flickering shadows on the walls. She saw visions of her ancestors, the women and men who had borne the weight of loss before her. Their faces were etched with sorrow, yet lit with a quiet dignity, and their voices, like the weeping of the harp, spoke of enduring hope amidst despair. In that moment, Lyris understood that the weeping harp was a living chronicle of the human experience, a vessel that held the collective grief and beauty of generations past. She resolved to honor their legacy, to let their voices guide her in transforming her own pain into art that could heal not only herself, but others who might one day hear its melancholic strains. Driven by a newfound sense of purpose, Lyris embarked on a journey beyond her small village. She traveled to distant towns and cities, sharing her music in the story of the weeping harp. In each place, her haunting melodies stirred deep emotions in her listeners. Some wept openly, while others found solace in the acknowledgement of their own hidden sorrows. The harp's reputation grew, and soon it became known as an instrument of transformation, a catalyst for emotional awakening. During her travels, Lyris encountered a variety of kindred spirits. Elias, a traveling poet whose verses captured the ephemeral beauty of life and loss, and who recognized in the harp's lament the rhythm of his own heart. Marina, a healer whose touch could soothe physical and emotional wounds alike, and who believed that the magic of the harp could mend even the most fractured souls. And Oren, an old musician whose lifetime of sorrow had taught him that tears, whether of joy or pain, were the currency of the human spirit. Together they formed a small but passionate circle, a fellowship bound by the shared belief that art could transcend grief and pave the way toward renewal. In the midst of her journey, Lyris received an invitation from a mysterious benefactor, a patron of the arts who claimed to have discovered ancient manuscripts that spoke of the weeping harp's true power. The manuscripts described a rare celestial event, the night of the silver moon, during which the harp's magic would reach its zenith, allowing it to channel the collective sorrows and hopes of humanity into a single, transcendent performance. On that night, under a sky bathed in silver light and the gentle glow of countless stars, Lyris gathered with her newfound friends in a grand amphitheater carved into the cliffs overlooking a vast, restless sea. With the weeping harp in hand, she began to play a melody that had been passed down through the ages, a lament for lost love, a tribute to broken dreams, and a hymn of quiet redemption. As her fingers danced across the strings, the harp wept with a fury and tenderness that transcended mortal sorrow. The audience, entranced by the music, felt their own burdens lifted. In that shared moment of vulnerability and beauty, the echoes of countless souls seemed to converge, and the boundary between past and present blurred into a luminous tapestry of light and tearful grace. After the night of the silver moon, Lyris's journey took on new meaning. The weeping harp had not only transformed her own life, but had also touched the hearts of all who had listened. Its music became a symbol of the profound truth that sorrow, when faced and embraced, could give way to healing and growth. In quiet moments of reflection, Lyris realized that every tear shed by the harp was a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit, a promise that even the deepest pain could be transformed into a radiant source of inspiration. In time, Lyris returned to her home village, where she established a small academy dedicated to the healing power of music and art. She taught others to play the weeping harp and to use their own creative expressions as a means of confronting and transcending personal grief. Her legacy spread far and wide, inspiring countless individuals to find beauty in the bittersweet tapestry of life. The manuscripts detailing the history of the weeping harp, along with Lyris's own memoirs, were compiled into a cherished volume titled Tears of Melody. This book, passed down through the years, served as a guide for those who sought to understand that the most profound art is born not from the absence of pain, but from the courage to transform it. Years have passed since Lyris first discovered the cursed yet beautiful legacy of the weeping harp. Now an elder with eyes that shimmer like the silvered tears of her beloved instrument, she sits by the window of her cottage, listening to the gentle strains of the harp as it plays a lullaby only the heart can hear. The echoes of her youth, of lost love, of deep sorrow, and of triumphant renewal are interwoven into every note. Her academy has grown into a vibrant community of artists, musicians, and healers, each carrying forward the understanding that every tear holds the seed of hope. The weeping harp, though weathered by time, continues to weep when played, its tears a perpetual reminder that the journey through sorrow can lead to unexpected beauty. On quiet evenings, when the sky is painted with the hues of twilight and the world is hushed in anticipation, one may hear the soft weeping of the harp echoing through the village, a symphony of sorrow and grace. Those who listen are reminded that life is a mosaic of joy and pain, and that every heartbreak has the potential to become a melody that heals and unites. In every note that drifts through the cool night air, in every tear that glistens upon the harp's frame, there lies the enduring promise of transformation, that even in the depths of despair, the human spirit can rise, reborn in a cascade of beautiful, transcendent song. Long ago, before the rise of modern conveniences, there was a grand estate known as Blackwood Manor, built by a prosperous family whose legacy stretched back through generations. The manor was a symbol of opulence and tradition. Its stone walls, meticulously carved with symbols of fortune and protection, witnessed countless celebrations, whispered conspiracies, and tragic farewells. Over time, as the descendants of Blackwood faded from memory and the estate passed through the hands of unknown heirs, the house fell into a state of melancholic abandonment. It was during these dark, forgotten years that the true nature of the manor began to reveal itself. Locals spoke in hushed tones of eerie sounds drifting from the crumbling corridors and of voices that seemed to answer questions long after they were asked. They believed that Blackwood Manor was more than a structure of stone and wood. It was a living repository of all that had transpired within its walls. Some say that the echoes began when the last heir, a forlorn poet named Edwin Blackwood, was consumed by despair after a personal tragedy. In his final days, he wandered the halls, reciting verses of loss and longing. Legend has it that his anguished words, filled with love and sorrow, resonated so deeply within the ancient stones that they awakened a mysterious force. From that moment on, every whispered conversation, every burst of laughter, every tear shed and secret spoken was captured by the manor and set free as echoes, phantom voices that would forever linger in the empty rooms. The house became a silent chronicler of its own past, preserving the joys and heartbreaks of all who had lived there. And as the years passed, its reputation grew, drawing the curious and the brave from distant lands, all eager to uncover the secret of the echoes that never faded. In a small village bordering the estate, a young woman named Clara Monroe led a life marked by a quiet yearning for meaning. Clara, a sensitive soul with a talent for painting and a heart attuned to the subtlest emotions, had always felt drawn to the mysteries of the past. When word reached her of a house where echoes lived, a place where the voices of lost souls seemed to speak to those who were willing to listen, she felt an inexplicable pull toward Blackwood Manor. Despite warnings from superstitious neighbors and the fearful glances of villagers, Clara decided to seek out the manor. She envisioned it as a sanctuary where she could find inspiration for her art, a place where the layers of forgotten history might reveal new truths about love, loss, and the passage of time. One chilly autumn evening, with the sky a tapestry of deep blues and fading golds, Clara arrived at the overgrown iron gate of Blackwood Manor. The gate creaked open with a sound that seemed to echo into eternity, welcoming her into a world suspended between past and present. As she stepped onto the property, a shiver ran down her spine. Not of fear, but of anticipation. The air was heavy with the scent of old wood and rain-damp earth, and somewhere in the distance, she thought she heard the faint sound of a melancholic melody. Inside the grand foyer, though cloaked in dust and cobwebs, retained an air of faded splendor. Ornate chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their crystals dull and silent. Each step Clara took echoed softly in the vast, empty space, a constant reminder that the house itself was listening, remembering. As night fell and the manor was draped in a deep, velvety darkness, Clara began to experience the house's true nature. In the silence, she started to notice faint murmurs, soft echoes of voices that seemed to drift from the walls. At first, she dismissed them as tricks of the wind or the creaking of old wood. But as the hours passed, the sounds grew clearer. Snippets of conversation, laughter, and even tears, as if the house were reenacting scenes from a forgotten play. Clara ventured into the corridors, guided by a compulsion she could not explain. In a long hallway, lined with faded portraits, she heard the faint recitation of a poem, a voice so tender and sorrowful that it made her heart ache. She followed the sound to a small sitting room, where the echo of a woman's laughter mingled with the rustle of invisible skirts. It was as if the room itself were a canvas, painted with the vibrant emotions of those who had once lived there. One evening, while exploring a forgotten library filled with ancient tomes and brittle manuscripts, Clara encountered something extraordinary. In a secluded alcove, bathed in the soft glow of moonlight seeping through a fractured window, she discovered a large mirror. Unlike ordinary mirrors, this one did not simply reflect her image. It seemed to show her visions of the past. As she gazed into its depths, she saw fleeting images. A family gathered for a joyful celebration, a sorrowful farewell at a departure, and even a lone figure wandering the halls, his eyes heavy with regret. The mirror's surface shimmered, and for a moment, Clara felt as though she were peering into the very soul of the house. The echoes, she realized, were not random. They were the living memories of every moment that had ever occurred within these walls. The mirror, like the house itself, was a silent keeper of history, holding the voices of the past in eternal suspension. Driven by a burning curiosity, Clara began to delve into the manor's hidden history. She spent days poring over the diaries and letters left behind by the Blackwood family, slowly piecing together a tapestry of joy, sorrow, and inevitable tragedy. In the yellowed pages of an old journal, she discovered the story of Edwin Blackwood, the poet whose lament had awakened the echoes. His words spoke of love lost and the eternal yearning for connection, resonating with a beauty that was both haunting and sublime. Clara learned that the house had been a center of creativity and passion, a place where art and life were intertwined in a delicate dance. But as time passed and the family's fortunes waned, the echoes of their former glory turned to murmurs of regret and despair. Each echo, each whispered memory, was a fragment of a life lived fully and then faded into obscurity. In her search, Clara discovered a hidden door behind a tattered tapestry in the grand hall. The door, carved with intricate symbols and barely visible in the dim light, led to a secret chamber, a sanctuary that had once been used by the Blackwoods for private gatherings and the preservation of family heirlooms. Inside, she found relics of the past, a music box that played a long-forgotten lullaby, portraits of ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow her, and a collection of letters addressed to no one in particular. In the center of the chamber, on a pedestal of carved oak, lay a small leather-bound book. Its pages were filled with the recorded echoes of the house, the voices of those who had once lived there, captured in elegant script. The book detailed moments of joy and sorrow, of love and loss, and revealed that the house itself was a repository for every emotion that had ever been felt within its walls. Clara realized that the echoes were not simply remnants of the past. They were the very essence of life, preserved in time. As the days turned into weeks, Clara found that the echoes began to weave themselves into the fabric of her own life. The voices of the past became a gentle guide, offering her insights into her own heart. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world was still and the house hummed with ancient memories, Clara would sit by the mirror and converse with the echoes, asking questions about love, loss, and the nature of existence. Through these silent dialogues, she discovered parts of herself that she had long buried. The dreams of her youth, the sorrows that had shaped her, and the unspoken hopes that lay dormant. The house, with its living echoes, became both a teacher and a friend, revealing that every whispered secret of the past was a mirror reflecting her own soul. Slowly, Clara began to use her newfound understanding to heal the wounds of her own past. She started to record her conversations with the echoes in her own journal, blending her experiences with those of the long-gone Blackwoods. In doing so, she created a living tapestry of memory that honored both the beauty and the pain of life. The echoes, once voices of despair, transformed into a symphony of shared human experience, a chorus that celebrated the resilience of the heart in the face of time's inexorable march. Her art blossomed as well. Inspired by the vibrant history of Blackwood Manor, Clara painted canvases that captured the ephemeral beauty of a moment, the interplay of light and shadow, and the quiet strength found in memory. Her works, rich with the hues of nostalgia and hope, began to draw attention from beyond the village, and soon her name became synonymous with the magic of the echoes. Over time, the people of the nearby village began to notice subtle changes in Blackwood Manor. The once forlorn estate, known for its melancholy silence, began to hum with a gentle vitality. Neighbors reported hearing soft, harmonious voices drifting on the wind, echoes of laughter, of stories shared on warm summer evenings, of hearts unburdened by regret. The house, it seemed, had learned to let go of the pain of the past, embracing instead the full spectrum of human emotion. Clara, now regarded as the caretaker of the echoes, opened the manor's long-forgotten doors to visitors seeking solace and inspiration. She hosted gatherings where people from far and wide would come to listen to the whispers of the past, to share their own stories, and to learn that the echoes of memory could be both a reminder of loss and a beacon of hope. In the twilight of each day, as the setting sun cast long, ethereal shadows across the estate, the house seemed to come alive with a gentle promise. The echoes, once mournful and forlorn, now danced on the walls like delicate ribbons of light. They spoke not of what had been lost, but of what could be found in the embrace of remembrance, a future built on the foundation of shared history, compassion, and the unyielding human spirit. Clara often stood on the manor's balcony, gazing out over the rolling hills and the quiet village below. In those moments, she understood that the true magic of the house was not in its ghostly whispers, but in its ability to transform the past into a living, breathing testament to hope. The house where echoes live had become a sanctuary for all who believed that memories, however bittersweet, were the threads that connected the heart to the eternal. Years passed, and the legend of Blackwood Manor grew into a cherished tale told around campfires and in quiet, contemplative gatherings. Travelers, artists, and seekers of truth would come to the estate to hear the echoes and to experience the gentle, transformative magic that filled its halls. The house, with its walls steeped in centuries of stories, stood as a testament to the enduring power of memory, a reminder that every whisper of the past holds the potential to heal, inspire, and guide us toward a brighter tomorrow. Clara Monroe's legacy, woven into the tapestry of the manor's history, continued to inspire future generations. She became a mentor to those who struggled with the weight of forgotten sorrows, teaching them that the echoes of the past were not chains to bind them, but gentle guides to help them rediscover the beauty of life. Her journals, paintings, and writings were preserved in a small museum within the manor, a sanctuary of reflection and hope. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world was still and the echoes whispered softly through the corridors, visitors would pause and listen. They learned that in every echo there lay a story, and in every story, a lesson, a promise that even as time passes, the essence of who we are endures, immortalized in the soft, ceaseless murmur of memory. On clear, starlit nights when the world seemed to hold its breath between dusk and dawn, one could see a lone figure wandering the halls of Blackwood Manor. It was said that this figure was the spirit of the house itself, a guardian of memories, ever watchful, ever gentle, inviting all who entered to embrace the echoes of their past and step boldly into the promise of the future. For in the house where echoes live, every sound, every sigh, every whispered word was a testament to the beauty and fragility of life. It was a place where time was not measured by the ticking of a clock, but by the cadence of a heart that remembered, and the soft murmur of voices that lived on, an eternal symphony of hope, sorrow, and the undying light of memory. In a time long before modern maps and measured journeys, the people of old spoke in hushed voices of a gate that appeared when the darkness of uncertainty settled over one's heart. Travelers recounted eerie encounters in remote hamlets where lost souls, whether physically adrift in unfamiliar lands or spiritually burdened by grief and regret, claimed to have stumbled upon a wondrous, ivy-clad archway. It was said that this gate did not swing open for the proud or the steadfast, but only for those whose hearts had been broken, whose steps had faltered, and whose eyes searched for solace in the twilight. The gate, adorned with intricate carvings of intertwining vines and ancient symbols, was rumored to be a creation of forgotten deities, a threshold forged in the liminal space between night and dawn. Legends foretold that if one stood before it at the moment when hope and hopelessness mingled, the gate would slowly part, revealing a path that led to an unknown destiny. Some believed that those who crossed its threshold would find redemption, while others claimed that the gate led only to deeper mysteries and challenges that must be overcome before the soul could be truly whole. In a bygone era, when the earth was young and magic flowed as freely as the rivers, the land was ruled by benevolent gods who watched over humankind. One such deity, known only as Laranthos, the guardian of wandering souls, was said to have taken pity on those who had lost their way. Laranthos, with a compassion as boundless as the sky, crafted a magnificent gate from stardust and ancient oak. This gate was imbued with the power to reveal one's true path, but only to those who had suffered loss and experienced the sting of despair. Its purpose was clear: to guide the lost back to the light, even if the journey required facing the darkest corners of one's own heart. As centuries passed and the old gods faded into legend, the gate endured, its magic hidden beneath layers of time and memory. Many forgot the divine origin of the gateway, but its silent vigil continued on a forgotten hillside, nestled within a glen where wildflowers grew amidst crumbling stone. Here, the gate waited patiently for the souls who had strayed too far from the beaten path. The ancient texts of that era spoke of a peculiar mark, a faint, luminescent sigil that would appear upon the skin of a soul in turmoil. It was said that only those who bore this mark, whether as a blessing or a burden, could see the hidden glen and the gate that awaited. The mark was not permanent, it often faded with time, yet its presence was a harbinger of a destiny not yet fulfilled. Thus the gate was destined to open only for those truly lost, as if the cosmos itself recognized the need for guidance and second chances. In a modest village on the outskirts of a vast ancient forest, a young man named Callum lived a quiet life shadowed by a deep, unspoken sorrow. Callum had once been full of dreams and ambition, but a series of tragic events, a love lost, a family broken, and opportunities squandered, had left him feeling unmoored and alone. The once hopeful fire in his heart had dwindled to a faint, uncertain glow. Haunted by the memories of what once was, Callum spent his days wandering the village and the surrounding countryside, seeking something he could not name. In his solitude, he began to notice strange occurrences, brief flashes of light in the corner of his eye, the gentle warmth of a phantom hand on his shoulder, and, most intriguingly, a delicate sigil that sometimes appeared upon his wrist, a mark he had never seen before. These signs whispered to him of a destiny greater than his current despair and urged him to leave the familiar behind in search of a new beginning. One cold, misty evening, as the fading light of dusk bled into the gathering night, Callum made a fateful decision. Unable to bear the weight of his own loss any longer, he gathered a small pack with a few treasured belongings, a worn journal, a faded photograph of happier times, and a locket containing the last memento of his beloved. With a heavy heart but a spark of resolve, he set out beyond the boundaries of his village, drawn by an inexplicable pull toward the unknown. As he ventured into the dense forest and over craggy hills, the signs grew clearer. The faint, luminescent mark upon his skin pulsed with each step, and in his dreams he began to see glimpses of a grand, ivy-draped gate standing alone in a clearing under the twilight sky. The visions were as beautiful as they were haunting, a promise of guidance for those who had lost their way. Callum's path was fraught with both physical and emotional challenges. The forest was a labyrinth of twisting trails, where shadows played tricks on the eyes, and ancient trees seemed to whisper secrets in a language long forgotten. Along the way, he encountered others who, like him, were lost, some wandering aimlessly, others burdened by their own regrets. Yet despite the hardships, each encounter became a lesson in resilience and compassion. There was Era, an elderly herbalist whose once vibrant eyes had dimmed with sorrow, and Joran, a stoic warrior haunted by the ghosts of battles past. Each shared their stories of loss and the quiet hope that somewhere beyond the horizon, a new dawn awaited. Their voices intertwined with the rustle of leaves and the murmuring wind, echoing the ancient promise that even the most shattered soul could find its way back to light. As days turned into nights and nights into days, the forest itself seemed to conspire in Callum's favor. Unusual phenomena, glowing fireflies that danced in intricate patterns, paths lit by bioluminescent moss, and the haunting sound of a distant melodic chime, guided him deeper into the wilderness. With each step, the mysterious mark on his wrist grew brighter, and the dreams of a grand gate became more persistent. One twilight, as the sky was streaked with shades of purple and orange, Callum reached a clearing bathed in soft, ethereal light. In the center of the clearing, framed by ancient stone and wild roses, stood a majestic gate. Its wrought iron design was delicate yet imposing, adorned with symbols that glimmered in the fading light. The sight struck him with overwhelming emotion, a mixture of fear, wonder, and a deep, aching hope. Callum approached the gate with hesitant steps, his heart pounding like a drum in the stillness of the twilight. The air around him was charged with an energy both exhilarating and unnerving. As he drew near, the gate's intricate carvings seemed to come alive, shifting and dancing in the soft glow of the setting sun. The very ground beneath his feet hummed with ancient power, and for a moment, time itself appeared to stand still. Standing before the gate, Callum raised his hand and brushed his fingers against the cool metal. In that instant, a gentle warmth spread through his body, and the mark on his wrist flared with radiant light. Slowly, the heavy doors of the gate began to creak open, as if acknowledging his presence and his pain. The sight was breathtaking, a threshold between the world he knew and a realm that promised healing, redemption, and perhaps even rebirth. Without fully understanding the gravity of the moment, Callum stepped through the open gate. Beyond it lay a path that wound through a lush, otherworldly landscape, a place where the colors were more vibrant. The air was laced with the scent of blooming jasmine and rain-washed earth, and a serene melody echoed in the distance. It was as if he had entered a sanctuary created by the lost, a haven where every soul burdened by sorrow could begin anew. With each step along the path, the weight of his past began to ease. Memories of regret and grief, once so oppressive, seemed to dissolve like mist in the morning sun. In their place emerged a quiet understanding, a realization that his journey, with all its pain and setbacks, had led him to this moment of profound possibility. The realm beyond the gate, which the ancient texts had hinted at but few had ever seen, was a place of gentle miracles. Rolling meadows of luminescent flowers stretched as far as the eye could see, and crystalline streams sang soft lullabies as they meandered through emerald forests. Here the skies shifted through hues of twilight, even at midday, a reminder that time in this realm was fluid, unbound by the rigid constraints of the world Callum once knew. In this new land, the lost gathered, wandering souls, each bearing scars of their past, found solace among one another. They built small, harmonious communities where each person's story was honored, and every tear was transformed into a seed of wisdom. The land itself seemed to nurture them, its magic gently healing old wounds and fostering growth in the hearts of those who dared to dream again. In a serene grove at the heart of this realm, a council was held by those who had come to understand that being lost was not a curse, but a state of transition. Elders with eyes that had seen both sorrow and joy shared their insights, while artists and poets wove stories of redemption through song and verse. Callum, humbled by the journey and the transformations he witnessed, was welcomed into the fold as one of the newly found. Under the gentle guidance of the council, Callum learned that the gate was not merely a physical passage, but a spiritual crucible, a test of one's willingness to confront the truths buried within and emerge stronger for it. He began to share his own story, his voice resonating with the quiet power of someone who had known despair but now embraced hope. His journey, once marked by uncertainty and loss, had become a beacon for others still wandering in darkness. Years passed, and the legend of the gate that opens only for the lost became a cherished parable among those who lived in the realm beyond. The gate remained at the boundary, a silent sentinel that occasionally reappeared to guide a new generation of seekers. Travelers from the old world, burdened by their own sorrows, would sometimes catch a glimpse of the glowing mark on their skin and feel the irresistible pull toward the mysterious hillside where the gate awaited. Callum, now a respected storyteller and guardian of the realm's ancient wisdom, would often sit by the edge of a tranquil lake and recount his journey to anyone who cared to listen. He taught that being lost was a vital part of the human experience, a necessary passage through which the soul learns, heals, and ultimately finds its way home. The gate, with its ornate carvings and timeless magic, remained a symbol of hope and renewal. It reminded all who encountered it that even in the depths of despair, there is the possibility of transformation. The realm beyond was not a destination, but a journey, a continuum where every lost soul could rediscover its purpose and contribute to the tapestry of shared memory and collective healing. As twilight fell each day in the enchanted land, the hues of dusk whispered promises of new beginnings. In every shadow, in every flicker of the luminescent flora, there was a gentle reminder that sometimes being lost is the very first step toward being found. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world still held its breath and dreams lingered on the edge of waking, those who had crossed the gate would pause to reflect on the journey that brought them there. Their hearts, once heavy with regret, now beat with the steady rhythm of hope and resilience. They knew that the gate would always open for the lost, each time offering a chance to shed the weight of yesterday and step boldly into the promise of a new day. Thus, the story of the gate that opens only for the lost endures, a timeless saga of despair and redemption, of journeys into darkness and the radiant dawn that follows. It is a tale written in the language of the soul, a reminder that no matter how far one may wander, there is always a way back, a portal of understanding that awaits those brave enough to seek it. Long ago, in a forgotten age when magic ruled the earth and the spirits of the departed walked openly among mortals, a master craftsman named Cassian Verrill created a mask unlike any other. He was renowned throughout the land for his skill in blending rare metals with enchanted gemstones, forging objects that could channel the mystical forces of life and death. But Cassian's greatest work would come at a terrible cost. In the depths of despair after the untimely loss of his beloved, Lady Isolde, Cassian sought solace in forbidden lore. In his grief, he turned to ancient texts that promised to reunite him with the lost soul of his love. Desperate to bring Isolde back from the realm of shadows, he fashioned a mask imbued with dark incantations and eldritch power. The mask was crafted from silver that glistened like frozen tears and inlaid with obsidian and ruby shards that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Legend has it that upon its completion, the mask absorbed a part of Cassian's own soul, and in doing so, it became a conduit for the spirits of the dead. Cassian soon discovered that the mask's power was far greater and far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. When worn, the mask allowed its bearer to see and speak with the dead, yet it came with a harrowing price. Every soul that had passed beyond the veil was inexorably drawn toward the mask's dark allure. Once touched by its magic, the souls of the departed would find themselves bound to the mask, unable to rest, forced to wander the realm of the living as echoes of pain and longing. The mask did not simply offer communion with the dead, it enslaved them. Over time, its curse spread like a virulent plague. Entire families were haunted by the unending presence of those who could not depart, and the mask's legend became a cautionary tale among seers and shamans alike. They spoke in trembling voices of its ability to steal away one's own soul, to trap it in a prison of eternal sorrow if the mask fell into the wrong hands. Overcome by guilt and horror at what he had unleashed, Cassian Verrill tried desperately to destroy his creation. But the mask, bound by the dark magics of the old world, proved indestructible. In a final act of despair, Cassian cast himself into a raging river, hoping that its currents would carry him far from his cursed work. Yet even as his body was claimed by the waters, whispers tell us that his soul remained forever tethered to the mask, a doomed warden of the spirits he had so tragically bound. For centuries after Cassian's tragic end, the mask vanished from the annals of history, its existence known only in half-remembered legends and the fevered dreams of those who dared to seek forbidden knowledge. It was said to wander from one dark corner of the realm to another, occasionally discovered in the dusty vaults of ruined castles, hidden in the relics of forgotten abbeys, or pass secretly between desperate souls who wished to speak with those who had died. Each bearer of the mask soon found themselves tormented by spectral visitations and the unyielding weight of lost souls. Some claimed to have heard the anguished cries of ancestors. Others saw the tormented faces of lovers separated by death. And as the mask traveled, it left behind a trail of despair, a tapestry woven from the unfulfilled longings and ceaseless grief of countless souls. In the quiet village of Raven's Hollow, nestled on the edge of an ancient forest, lived a young woman named Leora Marin. Known for her gentle spirit and quiet resilience, Leora had grown up hearing ghost stories and legends of haunted relics. Yet nothing could have prepared her for the day a mysterious package arrived at her doorstep. A small, velvet-lined box containing the mask. It came with no explanation, only a faded note in a spidery hand. To the one whose heart is heavy with loss, may this mask reveal the truth that lies beyond. Leora, whose own life had been marred by tragedy, the untimely death of her mother and the mysterious disappearance of her father, felt a shiver of both dread and longing. Though warned by the elders of Raven's Hollow about the cursed mask, she could not resist its pull. In her grief, she believed that the mask might finally help her reconnect with the loved ones she had lost. That night, under a sky heavy with the promise of storms, Leora hesitantly placed the mask upon her face. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. In the blink of an eye, her world dissolved into a maelstrom of colors and shadows. She found herself standing in a spectral mirror of Raven's Hollow, one where the veil between life and death had thinned to nothing. Around her, the air buzzed with ethereal voices, and in the distance, she saw the faint outlines of figures whose faces were blurred by sorrow. A voice both tender and haunting reached her ears. "Welcome, child of grief. We have waited for you." Leora felt both terror and a deep, inexplicable familiarity. The souls of the dead, bound by the ancient curse of the mask, had now found a vessel in her, a host through which their voices could finally be heard. In the days that followed, Leora's life became a constant dance with the spectral. At first, she was tormented by the endless barrage of voices and images, memories of a life that was not her own, sorrows accumulated over centuries, and the anguished cries of those trapped by the mask's curse. Yet as time wore on, she began to discern patterns among the apparitions. Some were gentle, seeking comfort and closure. Others were bitter, consumed by regret and longing for vengeance. One evening, as rain hammered against the window panes of her modest cottage, Leora sat with the mask resting on her lap, trembling as she listened to the whispered secrets of the dead. A spectral figure, shrouded in translucent garments, emerged from the shadows, a man with eyes full of sorrow and a story that spanned decades. "I was once a knight," he murmured, "betrayed by those I swore to protect. I am bound here by my broken honor." And so, one by one, the souls poured forth their stories, each tale a thread in a tapestry of loss and regret that spanned the ages. With every passing day, the mask's power grew. It fed on Leora's own grief and loneliness, intertwining her destiny with that of the dead. She began to notice that her reflection in mirrors would sometimes show the faint glimmer of ghostly figures standing behind her. Souls she had not seen in the physical world, but who now walked beside her in the twilight of her existence. Friends and neighbors soon whispered that Leora had become haunted, her eyes carrying a depth of sorrow that transcended mortal life. Yet within the torment, there was a strange beauty, a profound understanding of the transient nature of life and the eternal ties that bind us, even beyond death. Leora found that through the mask, she could help the lost souls find some measure of peace. In quiet acts of compassion, she would record their stories, promise to carry their memories into the world of the living. And in doing so, she slowly began to liberate them from the relentless grip of the curse. As Lyra's burden grew heavier, she sought answers in the dusty archives of Raven's Hollow's ancient library. There, among crumbling manuscripts and faded scrolls, she discovered references to an ancient ritual known as the Rite of Liberation, a ceremony designed to break the curse of the mask and free the souls bound within. The text described a treacherous journey to a sacred site known as the Hall of Echoes, hidden deep within the catacombs beneath a long-abandoned monastery. Determined to free both herself and the tormented souls, Lyra resolved to undertake the perilous journey. She knew that to break the ancient bond, she would have to confront not only the dark magic that had ensnared the mask, but also her own inner demons, the unresolved grief that had drawn her into this haunted destiny. Lyra was not alone in her quest. Word of her plight reached the ears of a mysterious wanderer known as Sir Rowan Ashford, a knight-errant reputed to have once battled forces of darkness and emerged victorious. Rowan, his own past marred by loss and regret, felt a kinship with Lyra's struggle and offered his assistance. Alongside him came a small band of allies. Marina, a gifted clairvoyant, whose visions of the past and future were as vivid as they were cryptic. Elias, a learned sage whose knowledge of ancient rituals and forbidden magic might provide the key to breaking the curse. And Kieran, a skilled tracker and warrior, whose unwavering determination ensured that no danger would deter their path. Together they formed an unlikely alliance, united by a common purpose: to journey to the Hall of Echoes, perform the rite of liberation, and finally sever the ties that bound the souls of the dead to the cursed mask. The path to the Hall of Echoes was as treacherous as it was mysterious. The ancient monastery lay hidden in a dense forest, its crumbling walls overtaken by ivy and shadow. Beneath its ruined sanctuary, the catacombs stretched like a labyrinth of despair. Dark, silent corridors where the echoes of the past whispered warnings to those who dared enter. Lyra and her companions descended slowly into the depths. The air grew colder, and the flickering light of their torches revealed haunting frescoes on the walls, depictions of celestial battles, sorrowful saints, the eternal struggle between light and darkness. Each step forward was a test of courage and resolve, as unseen forces seemed to tug at their very souls. After what seemed like an eternity wandering through winding passages, they reached a vast, domed chamber, the fabled Hall of Echoes. In the center of the hall stood a towering stone altar, its surface inscribed with arcane symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. The chamber vibrated with an otherworldly hum, as if the very air was alive with the memories of countless souls. Marina's eyes widened as she gazed upon the altar. "This is where the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest," she whispered, her voice trembling with both awe and fear. Elias explained that the rite of liberation required each participant to confront the essence of their own sorrow, to offer it up to the altar as a sacrifice of truth. Only then would the magic of the altar have the power to unbind the curse. One by one, Lyra and her allies stepped forward before the altar. The ritual demanded that each confess the deepest, darkest fears and regrets that had ever haunted their souls. For Lyra, it meant facing the overwhelming grief of her past, the loss of her mother, the mystery of her father's disappearance, and the crushing loneliness that had driven her to accept the cursed mask. As she stood before the altar, tears streaming down her face, Lyra recited the words she had written in her private journal, the very record of her sorrow. The altar's symbols pulsed in response, and the chamber filled with a spectral light that danced upon the stone walls. In that moment, the barrier between the living and the dead began to thin, and the anguished voices of the bound souls rose in a chorus of hope and lament. When it was time for the final act, Sir Rowan stepped forward, offering his own token of remorse, a family heirloom, a sword that had once belonged to his father, stained with the sacrifices of past battles. As the artifact was placed upon the altar, the chamber trembled, and a surge of ethereal energy burst forth. The voices of the dead, once trapped by the masked curse, swirled around them like a maelstrom of sorrow and longing. Elias, with his arcane knowledge, chanted ancient incantations that reverberated through the hall, binding the magic of the ritual into a single, potent force. Slowly, as the combined weight of their confessions and sacrifices reached its zenith, the altar's glow intensified. In a blinding flash of light, the ethereal chains that had held the souls captive shattered like glass, and a great sigh seemed to echo throughout the catacombs. For a heartbeat, all was silent. Then, as the light faded, the companions beheld a wondrous sight. The souls that had been trapped by the cursed mask now drifted free, ascending toward an unseen horizon, a final, liberating exodus into the realm of peace. Freed from its unholy burden, the cursed mask began to glow with a soft, mournful light. Leora, now trembling with a mixture of exhaustion and relief, removed the mask from her face. In its place, she felt an unexpected warmth, a sense of release and the promise of a new beginning. The mask, once an instrument of eternal torment, had lost its power over the souls of the dead. Its dark magic, undone by the collective strength and honesty of those who had faced their deepest fears, was finally broken. As Leora and her companions emerged from the catacombs into the cool light of early dawn, the weight of the past seemed to lift. The mask was left behind in the sacred hall, now nothing more than an inert relic, a symbol of what had once been, and a reminder of the power of redemption. The freed souls, visible only in fleeting glimpses to those attuned to the spiritual realm, departed with peaceful smiles and gentle farewells, their long torment finally at an end. The curse that had bound the dead was lifted, and Leora felt a profound change within herself. She was no longer haunted by the relentless whispers of sorrow. Instead, she carried within her the quiet strength of a soul that had faced the darkness and emerged transformed. News of the miraculous liberation spread throughout Raven's Hollow and beyond. The once somber village, where people had long resigned themselves to living with the lingering echoes of loss, found new hope in the tale of the mask that no longer bound the souls of the dead. The story of Leora and her allies became a beacon, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could heal through courage, sacrifice, and compassion. The ancient relic was enshrined in a modest chapel built near the ruins of the old monastery. There, visitors came to pay homage, to leave tokens of remembrance, and to reflect on the journey from despair to renewal. In time, the story of the cursed mask was woven into the tapestry of local lore, celebrated as a parable of the transformative power of confronting one's inner darkness. Leora went on to become a guide and mentor to those who struggled with the burdens of grief and regret. She authored a series of memoirs and essays detailing her journey, which were later compiled into a book titled Shadows Unbound. Her writings inspired countless others to seek out their own paths to healing, teaching that the most potent magic lay not in curses or ancient relics, but in the human heart's capacity for resilience and transformation. The once cursed mask, now a lifeless artifact, served as a potent symbol of the past, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked sorrow and the redemptive power of embracing one's pain to find hope. On quiet evenings, when the light of the setting sun mingled with the cool hues of approaching night, Leora would sit by a window overlooking Raven's Hollow. In the fading glow, she would recall the long, arduous journey, a path marked by tears, whispers of the dead, and ultimately, the liberating power of confronting one's innermost fears. Though the scars of the past remained, they were now imbued with a wisdom that lit her way forward. For every soul that had once been ensnared by the mask's curse, there was now a promise that even in the darkest night, the light of a new dawn was waiting to be born, a beacon of hope to guide the lost, the grieving, and the broken toward a future of healing and renewal. Long before the modern villages dotted the countryside, elders whispered about a trail born of both nature and magic. In the days when gods walked among men and the wind carried ancient secrets, a mysterious pathway was said to have been laid out by the forest spirits themselves. It was believed that the trail was a gift, a way for wandering souls to find their true path when the world around them grew too confusing. The trail was not fixed, it was ever-changing, echoing the impermanence of life. Its legend passed down from generation to generation, sometimes as a fable of hope, and other times as a cautionary tale for those who dared stray too far from destiny. Some legends even claim that the trail was both a blessing and a curse. When the sun was high, the trail was steady and familiar, a route to known villages and fields ripe with harvest. But at dusk, when shadows lengthened and the world softened into dreamlike hues, the trail would shift as if awakening from a deep slumber. Those who followed it in the twilight risked being led astray from all that was familiar, only to find themselves at a crossroads between past regrets and future promises. In truth, this capricious change was seen by many as an invitation to embrace uncertainty, to seek out the hidden truths of the heart, and to learn that sometimes a new direction is exactly what one needs. Nestled at the edge of the enchanted woodlands lay the village of Sun's Crest, a place bathed in golden light by day and touched by melancholy at dusk. The villagers lived simple lives, tending to their fields and caring for their livestock. Yet the changing of the trail was a constant source of both wonder and quiet anxiety. Elders recounted tales of those who had followed the trail at dusk and returned transformed. A farmer who discovered new love after years of solitude, a wayward youth who found his calling in distant lands, and even a grieving widow who finally made peace with her sorrow. Among them was a young woman named Marisol, known for her kind heart and unquenchable curiosity. Since childhood, Marisol had listened to the stories of the enchanted trail with wide-eyed wonder. Every evening as the sun began to sink, she would watch from the village's ancient watchtower as a faint, shimmering light seemed to beckon toward the forest depths, a silent call to those willing to venture into the unknown. For Marisol, the call of the trail was not a distant legend, but a deeply personal summons. After losing her father to a long illuminated past and her mother to the quiet despair of illness, Marisol's heart carried both sorrow and hope. She felt that somewhere beyond the familiar borders of Sun's Crest lay answers to the questions that haunted her. Was her destiny forever tethered to the past, or could she forge a new path as fluid and unpredictable as dusk itself? Her resolve was further bolstered by the tales of transformation shared by the village elders. In the dimming light of each evening, as the trail changed direction and seemed to shimmer like a mirage, Marisol's longing grew stronger. She vowed that one day, when the moment was right, she would follow that shifting path into the heart of the enchanted woods to discover the truth behind her destiny. At the onset of autumn, when the leaves turned amber and the air grew crisp with the promise of change, Marisol decided that the time had come. With a small pack containing provisions, her father's old compass, and a leather-bound journal to record her journey, she bid farewell to her family and the familiar comfort of Sun's Crest. The villagers gathered at the edge of the woods, offering blessings and bittersweet farewells, for they knew that the trail was as unpredictable as it was transformative. Marisol's first steps on the path were filled with trepidation and excitement. The trail was well trodden by villagers during the day, a ribbon of dirt leading toward the forest depths. But as the sun dipped lower, the landscape began to blur and shimmer, and Marisol felt the pulse of magic beneath her feet. As dusk approached on her very first day, Marisol reached a clearing where the trail, illuminated by the last vestiges of sunlight, took an unexpected turn. Where before the path had led steadily northward, now it forked in two directions. one shrouded in deepening shadows, the other glimmering with a faint, ethereal light. With her heart pounding and her mind awash with uncertainty, she hesitated at the fork. The whisper of the wind and the soft murmur of the forest seemed to offer no clear guidance. In that moment of indecision, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the enchanted magic of dusk took hold. The trail shimmered as if alive, its dust swirling in graceful eddies that defied gravity. Marisol chose the path that glowed with a faint light, a decision that would mark the beginning of her transformation. As Marisol followed the luminous path, the forest around her transformed into a realm that straddled the line between waking life and dream. The trees, once rigid and familiar, now bent in gentle arcs as if bowing to some unseen force. Shadows stretched and intertwined with beams of silver moonlight, creating patterns that shifted with every step. The air was perfumed with the scent of wild jasmine and damp earth, and every rustle of leaves whispered secrets of a time when magic was raw and unbound. In this enchanted twilight, the trail continued to change direction in subtle yet profound ways. At one juncture, it led her along a bubbling brook whose waters glowed with an inner radiance. At another, it ascended a gentle slope, offering a panoramic view of the valley below, where the lights of sun's crest twinkled like distant memories. With each change in direction, Marisol felt as if the trail was not merely a path in the physical world, but a guide through the labyrinth of her own heart and soul. On her journey, Marisol encountered a myriad of fellow wanderers, souls who, like her, had been drawn to the mysterious allure of the shifting trail. There was an elderly man named Amon, whose eyes sparkled with the wisdom of countless journeys. Amon told tales of a time when he, too, had followed the trail at dusk and had discovered hidden truths about the nature of hope and despair. His stories were full of melancholy laughter and bittersweet memories, and his gentle advice offered Marisol both comfort and caution. Another traveler was a young poet named Soren, whose words flowed as effortlessly as the river that bordered the trail. Soren believed that the changing direction of the path was a metaphor for the endless possibilities of life, a reminder that one's destiny was not fixed, but fluid and ever-evolving. He recited verses that captured the beauty of impermanence, and in his presence, Marisol felt a stirring of creative inspiration. Together, these wanderers shared campfires beneath a vast twilight sky, exchanged stories of loss and renewal, and marveled at the enigmatic magic of the trail. Their shared experiences bound them in a fellowship of the lost and the hopeful, a kinship forged in the transformative light of dusk. As the journey progressed, the trail began to present challenges that were as much about the inner world as the outer landscape. At one critical juncture, the path split once more into two divergent routes. One route led into a dense, somber woodland, where the air was heavy with the scent of decay and the soft murmur of regret. The other opened into a sunlit glen, aglow with a gentle promise of renewal and possibility. Marisol, her heart heavy with memories of past failures and unhealed wounds, felt the pull of the gloomy path. The forest of regret seemed to call to her with the familiarity of sorrow. Yet the glen shimmered with a promise she could scarcely believe, a promise of a future where she could finally let go of the burdens that had weighed her down. With trembling determination, she chose the path toward renewal, accepting that to overcome her pain, she must first acknowledge it. Further along the trail, as dusk deepened into night, the path led to a narrow wooden bridge suspended over a dark, reflective chasm. The water below was as still as glass, and in its depths, Marisol saw her own reflection. Only not as she was, but as she might become if she surrendered to despair. The vision was haunting, a gaunt figure with eyes devoid of hope, lost in an endless cycle of regret. Summoning all the courage she could muster, Marisol paused on the bridge. There, under the watchful gaze of the starry sky, she confronted the specter of her potential downfall. In a cathartic moment of truth, she spoke aloud the fears and regrets that had haunted her for years. The sound of her voice, carried by the wind over the reflective chasm, seemed to break the spell of darkness. Slowly, the vision in the water softened, replaced by an image of herself bathed in gentle light, her eyes filled with determination and the promise of new beginnings. After many days of walking, the shifting trail led Marisol to a vast clearing. Here, the enchantment of dusk seemed to pause. The trees stood in solemn vigil around a smooth, flat stone that served as a natural altar. In this hallowed space, the trail had finally gathered all its mysterious energies, and the air shimmered with the resonance of countless journeys. In the clearing, Marisol discovered an ancient inscription carved into the stone, a message left by those who had walked this path long before her. The inscription read, "In the twilight of despair, when the heart is heavy and the soul is lost, the path may change to guide you home. Embrace the unknown, and in the shifting light, find the promise of a new day." The words, etched by hands long faded into memory, filled her with a profound sense of purpose. She realized that the trail's capricious changes were not meant to confound her, but to lead her toward moments of revelation and healing. In that moment, Marisol understood that the journey itself was the destination, a never-ending process of growth, loss, and transformation. As Marisol sat in quiet contemplation in the clearing, the first light of dawn began to filter into the sky, a rare and fleeting glimpse of hope that seemed almost miraculous in a land where the sun had long set on certainty. The trail, bathed in the soft hues of morning, appeared to stand still, as if waiting for her decision. With newfound resolve, she stepped forward, embracing the change with a heart open to both the beauty and the pain of life. It was in that sacred moment of rebirth that the trail shifted one final time, a gentle curve that led her out of the enchanted woods and toward a horizon awash with the subtle promise of sunrise. Though the sun itself had not yet emerged, the path glowed with the tender light of possibility, and Marisol knew that her journey was only beginning. Years later, the tale of the shifting trail became a cherished legend in Sun's Crest and beyond. Travelers, poets, and dreamers spoke of the enchanted path that changed direction at dusk, a symbol of life's unpredictable twists, of the beauty hidden within uncertainty, and of the courage required to forge a new destiny. Marisol, now a wise storyteller with silvered hair and eyes that still held the spark of adventure, shared her experiences with anyone willing to listen. She taught that every journey, no matter how long or arduous, was a tapestry woven from both sorrow and hope, and that even when the way forward was unclear, the path would reveal itself in time. The enchanted trail continued to change with each passing dusk, its magic undiminished by the years. New generations would set out along its winding paths, driven by the same restless desire to discover what lay beyond the known horizon. And though the trail's direction was ever shifting, sometimes leading to joyful meadows, at other times into shadowed glens, it always carried with it the promise that even the most uncertain path could lead to profound transformation. On quiet evenings, when the twilight draped the land in a soft, otherworldly glow, one might still see a lone figure walking the trail, a silent wanderer embracing the mystery of life, ever mindful that the journey itself was the true destination. For in that eternal dance of dusk and dawn, the trail whispered its timeless secret, that in every change, in every twist of fate, there lies the potential for rebirth, and that every lost soul can, in the end, find its way home.